Welcome to Woodworm Studios in North Oxfordshire. I have with me Gary Marshall of Fun When You Drum, a professional drummer since 1987. Gary is a performer and an educator in conjunction with Sonar Drums and Zildjian Cymbals, on whose behalf he conducts regular workshops for students of all ages and abilities. If you're minded to take up the drums for fun or have aspirations for occupying the drum stool on stage, you've come to the right place. Gary's the man to start you on your journey. Gary, how old were you when you first decided that drums were going to be your instrument of choice? And had you tried any other instruments before you made that momentous decision?
It's always been the drums for me. I was about 10 years of age when I picked up the sticks, and I did have a little go with a guitar. My mother bought me a guitar. I think she was in a roundabout way trying to put me off the drums. But she gave me the guitar, I strummed the guitar, broke the string and said, no, it's not for me, and gave it back to her. Then I had a little go with the mouth organ because I thought its portability was quite appealing. Put that into my pocket and off I went, and I made horrendous noises on that, and then decided, no, it's got to be the drums, and I pursued the drums from that age.
So whatever my age, I've decided that I want to learn a musical instrument. So persuade me that drums would be a fulfilling and perhaps life-changing choice.
Well, the drums, I think, from my perspective, and hopefully your perspective, is that it's a bit like a Lego set in that you've got multiple different bits on the kit. It's quite adaptable, and I've always found it to be a lot of fun.
Gary, how essential is it for any aspiring drummer to understand and appreciate the rudiments of other genres, perhaps ones that they hadn't intended on following? If someone wants to be a rock and roll drummer, is it important that they understand, let's say, for example, how jazz drumming matters in performance?
It's very important to appreciate the rudiments in drumming. The rudiments are the foundation. Every instrument has its foundation, and the rudiments of drumming are set into the marching tradition. So before the kit was invented and put together, it was all coming off from the snare drum and the marching tradition, and therefore this will feed into the music.
And who are your favourite drummers, and how have they inspired you, and why would you recommend your students listen to them?
3 drummers. Power Station comes to mind, which is a project with Tony Thompson and the 2 Duran Duran guys, Andy and John, and Robert Palmer. And the drummer was formerly with a band called Chic, and he's a great funk drummer, but he surprised me in being a great rock drummer. It's just got some great tunes, some great vibes. Parallel Lines by Blondie with Clem Burke. You've got some great pop tunes, disco with Heart of Glass, Fade Away and Radiate, which is very atmospheric and very dynamic. So there's a lot of things you could delve into there. And Nonsuch by a band called XTC with Dave Mattox playing on, which again has got some great ideas. Very varied songs and very varied textures and dynamics in the song. So I recommend drummers to check those out.
Gary, can you explain a little about the coordination that a drummer needs? I mean, you're playing with all 4 limbs at once, which is something that very few other musicians need to be able to do.
Yeah, very much so. You need to have good 4-way coordination between the limbs, and you start off with a very simple rhythm when you're learning drums, and then you try and play harder things on each limb and try and build the limbs together. I can give you a demonstration of that if you'd wish.
That'd be great.
I can give you 5 things.
5 things?
Yeah, 2 hands, 2 feet, and I'll use the whistle. I'm not going to sing. The hi-hat might have a pattern like this. Then you learn to put the 2 together. Play the cowbell part like this. Add the snare drum like this. Add the hands and feet together like this. And you can either make some noises over the top. Or you can use the whistle, and the whistle goes like this. So we have 5 things going together: 2 hands, 2 feet, and the whistle.
practice is essential for any musician, is there a case for suggesting that over-practice can get in the way of compositional ability? The reason I asked the question is that I was watching an interview recently with Gavin Harrison of King Crimson, The Porcupine Tree, The Pineapple Thief, amongst others. And he said, the things I like to hear are never the technical things, but the little unexpected, tasteful intricacies. The bit where they go all fast and flashy? Okay, that's technique, a circus act. We can all do that. But I'm not witnessing any music, no expression. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Gavin. I think you can over-practice, you can woodshed too much, you can play rudiments till the cows come home. It's not about being in the drumming Olympics and being the fastest drummer, the loudest drummer, the most intricate drummer. It's about developing things from the heart and the way that you feel about music. And I feel that comes from listening to great drummers like Gavin and listening to tracks they played on, different musical genres, and going way back into the early days of the jazz scene and blues and drummers that you may not have heard of in the first place.
So you encourage your students to have a go at composing and to realise that they can leave spaces in the music and sometimes rein in on the pyrotechnics.
Yes, yeah, it's very important to leave a hole in music. There's a nice little story where the band XTC were interviewed on a radio station and they were asked what kind of musicians, if they could hire them, that they'd like to hire. And they said, what about a drummer? And they said, oh, there's a guy called Dave Mattox. And the gentleman said, well, what's so important about Dave? And they said, well, he's great at the one-beat fill. And they laughed. And he said they use a space, a space, a space, thud, thud, space, thud, space. And by leaving holes in music, it can often sound a lot more musical rather than machine gunning around the drum kit.
Gary, tell us about Fun When You Drum, the philosophy behind it, the caricature that shows you in all your publicity materials, and the fun that you as the tutor have had.
I suppose what's the most fun for me is teaching people of all ages, all walks of life. I've got from very famous students like Christian Horner, who's the head of Red Bull Formula One racing team, down to celebrity chefs, military artists, all kinds of people, all walks of life. I've done all sorts of school teaching and demonstrations in shops and so on. I met some wonderful people in the years that I've been teaching.
And your popular Fun When You Drum workshops, that's given many of your students the privilege of seeing some very high-profile drummers in action.
Yes, we have great drummers like Mark Mundese, Steve White, Dave Mattox, and Chrissy Lee. And I encourage them to come and get better lessons, with other drummers that they don't have regular access to. And through my contacts over the years and my friendships with the drummers that I know, I've arranged for them to come up to the local area, and the students have some great lessons. I learn too. We're always learning. You never stop learning. And they're a great source of fun and a great source of information.
Gary, you've inspired me. I want some lessons. So I come round to your studio, you give me a pair of sticks and I start tub thumping.
Not exactly. We might sort of talk a little bit about the drum set, the components of the drum set, and also about the amount of fun that you're likely to have playing the drums. We'll look at stick grip eventually and a basic rudiment, something like the paradiddle, and just trying to get something formulated on the snare drum.
Thank you, Gary. Please get in touch with Gary if we've inspired you to pick up the drumsticks. You can get in touch with Gary quite simply with a couple of clicks right here.